Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And it seems the delay has had quite some effect here on the CDL. Not only was it sloppy from the production side of things, but also some of the sloppiest Call of Duty I think we've seen all season long, especially from one particular team of note, arguably their worst series in terms of, well, let's say fundamental play that we've seen so far this year. But very much enjoying your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to dive into, 3 series to discuss. First of all, of course, it was what the subliners played up against the Florida Mutineers. Now, Temp said, we'll see what Paris has to do in the coming days here, because effectively Temp said in the clip, we looked earlier today at the fact that he's pretty confident that Paris actually, since their change, are rather good, and it could do some serious damage. And he says that, okay, yes, look, Paris aren't going to win champs, they're not even going to qualify for champs more than, I think there might be still a world where it's possible, actually, especially with Florida's loss, we'll see here in a second, but yeah, not going to happen, but still, they could do some damage, right? He did say that teams that are kind of on the brink of qualification definitely need to watch out for Paris, because they are coming for blood this time. Hopefully they don't go 0-5. Hopefully they take some scalp, which of course any scalp they do take will affect seeding and the like for teams further above them. And they can do some serious damage to preventing teams from getting to champs, but of course, well, teams like the Florida Mutineers are doing that damage themselves. The boys are here. This is of course the new squad, 2 Real Awakening, Skies and Major Maniac of course. And I said earlier today that, okay, look, when this got confirmed, in theory, I think it's a downgrade in terms of the SMG department, maybe a slight upgrade in terms of their search and destroy, but to win a game 5 that Major Maniac will help you with, you've actually got to get there, and that's not what they did this series. Like, there was some talk between subliners and Mutineers, of course, good social media teams, no doubt, but game 1 it went the way of, well, the Florida Mutineers, actually. It was a crazy game here on Tuscan, because New York seemed down and out of it. Somehow they brought it back. Awakening and Major Maniac had good maps here, 250 to 246 in the end. New York they tried their best to break this kind of P2 here, but didn't work out for them, and yeah, Mutineers pretty much steal the game 1 away. It did look like it was getting pretty suspect to the end, and then fair play to subliners bouncing back, but this honestly was like the longest session just driver. I just couldn't be bothered anymore, and I was trying to watch it. There were game crashes all over the park. I don't think it was entirely the CDL's fault in this. I think like people were saying it wasn't really the CDL's fault. It was kind of just like drops on the kind of player's end. I think Crim was saying he was having some issues in his apartment and stuff. It feels like New York, and just whenever there's a series with Hydra in, there always seems to be some sort of technical delay around the corner. But anyway, somehow New York managed to go up, and then the game drops, they have to go again. End up being 5-2, 6-3 in the end, I believe it was. The subliners close out this game to tie up the series. There was a few moments of note, right? Hydra was making some interesting plays, but in the end it's a 1-1 series, pretty much as most people I suppose expected going into the game 3. This was a subliners win, but it was a really strange one, to be honest, because yeah, 2 Real doesn't have the greatest map, and 2 Real just in general here had a rather hard time this series. We'll see here in a second. It does make you question it very much indeed, as we all have been doing really the last few days. Why would they let Vivid go from this team? But let's just see how it goes, because PaulX dominated this game. Hydra had a good game as well, but PaulX he alpha mailed them time and time again. But when you're outslaying by this much and you're only barely winning the game, just shows that the level of control play that these teams were bringing to the table just wasn't really there. Like the defenses were holding strong. Subliners closed out in the end, but fair play to PaulX getting them over the line there, and then they ended up closing out the game 4 as well. 2 Real was getting roasted, right? So we can see some of the roast in the chat here. Honestly, I didn't see, my favorite one was like 0.2 Real, which people were coming up with after the search and destroy. Had a bit of a tough time there. But yeah, 3-1 to the subliners. They take the series. This is what I thought would happen. They of course have not necessarily more to play for. Both teams needed to win really here, but at subliners at least keep their dreams alive of making the run to the World Championship, right? A big scamp against the Mutineers, but I mean, they looked pretty woeful. I can't lie. The last few maps of this series, Yeez honestly tweeted this out, not actually deleted, kind of looking there thinking, well, could have given me a go, lads. At least put me in the team as the SMG. That could have been an idea, because 2 Real didn't have the greatest time, of course. Look, not all about stats, but just he was running in, dying head first. Reminded me of Jimbo, to be honest, in Jimbo's first series when he came into the Paris Legion. So yeah, 0.65, not a great debut for him. 8k damage, over 100 deaths. Like he was head smashing and dying again and again. Awakening still manages to drop a 1.2, so I suppose fair play. But even Major Maniac was kind of getting hawked on there towards the end as well. So Hydra, PaulX, they're doing their thing. PaulX the MVP of this series to me, but Hydra still drops 100 kills. But again, Florida Mutineers, right? Like I mean, look, I thought their respawns might get worse and their search and destroy might get better. And against a good respawn team like the subliners, they're gonna beat you in those game modes pretty much every single time here, apart from the game 1. And if that continues, this team is already looking, well, they're already looking precarious. Now they're looking almost a favourite to not make the World Championship, right? I definitely wonder whether this change will backfire on them, especially because on current trajectories going into Major 4, it was Boston that looked like they were going to fall out of the top 8, and it was Florida Mutineers who might well have got in based on their kind of performances going in. Now they've arguably given their biggest asset to a team that's, well, a massive rival for them, and of course we'll see that here in just a second. OpTic versus Boston, again, massive technical delays here. No idea what was going on before this series began. Felt bad for the casters having to fill again and again and again to try and get the series underway. Finally, it happens. And I mean, yeah, OpTic went down in this game one. It was kind of an interesting one because Boston are pretty good at this map here at Gavutu. But usually, like, I've seen so many times where Boston have a game here against a good team that's like 180 to 180, like 200, 200, and then they just lose in the end. And that's basically what happened. And I thought, okay, yeah, classic Boston. Like, Vivid's in. He played well, actually, here, the game one. Methods has had a shocking game one. They were like 11 and 25 here. And if that happens, like, you've got to close out this map if you're OpTic, as of course they do. Scump, Dash, you were pretty much doing it all to get them over the line game one. It was a pretty suspect game one. It was far from easy for OpTic, but eventually they close it out, right? And okay, they go into the game two with the advantage we expected them to have. Usually Boston, especially pre-Vivid, against any good team, the likes of OpTic, like, they're pretty much always going to lose. And it felt like a very similar story, right? After the game two as well, like, even Scrimmintel kind of roasting Methods at how he plays against the top teams, right? He had a, what was it, a 0.44 game one, 11 in 25. Now, even as Methods says, kind of after the series concluded, that I dropped 50 in Gaff 5 in the scrim before he played, and then spawned into the match at, like, Tony Snell, right? So, yeah, had a bit of a hard time there, but of course, bounced back as the series progressed. But yeah, didn't bounce back in the game too, right? Because I don't know what Methods was even thinking it, to be honest. Probably just got gifted the freest 1v1 of his life. It was a 1v1, game 2, round 11. Probably had a great map too here. 12 in 7, with some crucial clutches to his name as well. And yeah, this final round against Methods, interesting play from Methods, let's just say, making all that noise in the bottom there that allows Predators to come up behind him and get the clutch. But fair play, OpTic honestly looked like they were going to throw this game away. They had a few advantages. It was like 4-3, 3-2, 4-3, 5-4, this type of stuff. Ended up going 5-5. And Methods, I don't really know like exactly what his play was here, to be honest, but Predator was close enough to hear it. It gets the kill, 2-0 up. So you're thinking, okay, OpTic 2-0 up. They're going into control, right? This is where the OpTic of old just close out the series, no problem at all. Boston, of course, terrible control team statistically so far this season. But it goes the other way, and this is really, like we talked about this a couple of weeks ago now, OpTic's crucial concern. If their control falls off, as it has been, then, how good actually are they as a team, right? Because if they aren't close out series 3-0, their other game modes are a bit suspect. Their control was arguably what was carrying them through a lot of situations, right? And when they're losing maps like this, TJ has a 4-piece, 2 of which on his own team, but we actually saw this game one, like this is really where the sloppy plays came in, right? OpTic in this situation, they've got only 6 lives left, Boston have 9, so still it's kind of it's almost a 50-50 rounds. A slight advantage here for Boston in lives, but OpTic of course have only 30 seconds to defend for, like there's 1 tick on the B zone, so probably it's 50-50, maybe even slightly favouring OpTic here depending on how things go. But Scump decides for some reason to run out this door. Maybe he didn't know the lives, I don't really know what he was thinking, to be honest, but I mean, yeah, so many like just really questionable plays. I'm sure Rambo was just pulling his hair out watching some of this stuff, because Scump flies out the door, gets 1 kill but gets traded, and then the entire OpTic team drops and they lose the round. I'm like, okay, surely just hold the angles, try and go 2 for 1, and then OpTic should have been able to win this round, to be honest. If they had won it, they probably keep this series alive, or maybe keep of course the chance alive of the 3-0. Losing this one though seemed to kind of destroy their mental a little bit. Round 1 as well, on their offense there was also some very questionable plays being made, so it just felt like after that kind of 2 kind of rounds that they arguably should have won there, and then it falls away, that again at the kind of mental resilience of this OpTic team is called into question. We saw it at Major 3, right, during the whole splashy situation, and again, like after they lost that game 3 and they got 3-0'd, I was like, this series is just very questionable. Like there's many other teams in the league that bounce back from that. Like mentally, I just don't think OpTic have what it takes, honestly, especially without Illy, right? We've seen it a couple of times now where, like, when things don't go their way, all of a sudden you get a score like this in game 4, and they're getting 5-point clubbed after like the first 3 hard points, which I mean, yeah, this just spelled disaster. As soon as I saw this, I was like, okay, it's a reverse sweep, it's done. Like this is just how OpTic are nowadays, and it just seems like the same story repeats itself, right? It was so, like, you knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time of waiting the 10-20 minutes to actually see it happen, right? It was just so obvious how the rest of the series was going to play out. It's crazy how predictable it is. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that one, but anyway, OpTic can bring a comeback here, fair play to them, but lose the map regardless. When you're down 100 on Mikaj, it's probably just going to be over anyway. Nero, fair play to him, right? Because we talked about this a few days ago. People were questioning Cap, Nero, which one should have gone for Vivid. To me, I said keep Nero. I think you proved exactly why, right? This guy can do whatever he wants on the map. Dominated Mikaj, almost dropped a 50 bomb against OpTic, which is hard to do. Good map for OpTic, but also pretty good map for Boston as well. I feel like Vivid and Nero just favour, like, they're so good theoretically on Mikaj. I'm kind of surprised that OpTic went down this route, but, fair enough, I suppose, on the veto situation. And then, of course, it goes game 5. And I already knew how this one was going before we even got here, right? Berlin, game 5. Like, this has happened before to OpTic in this situation. They lost this map to Florida, right, in a similar situation relatively recently. And this was a round that you really can't afford to lose. Like, again, I don't really know what Scump's looking at here, to be honest. This is where he was kind of getting roasted for. Like, surely he sees him. There was also a questionable play that Scump did a few rounds earlier where Methods is on the roof. I'm not really sure why Scump didn't check it. Surely a pretty obvious spot to check. If Scump gets it, he certainly gets the kill, and then a very different round could have played out. And this one obviously was massive, right? Vivid 1v2 sitting down here. Like, for some reason, Scump doesn't really check this angle. Like, surely he kind of looks at him or sees him, or, like, I don't know. He just gets taken down, and then Dashi, I don't know, like, maybe Dashi should have just stuck the bomb. I feel like he should have just stuck buckets here. Like, this is a perfect situation to stick it, really. And he would have had it 100% if he just stuck the bomb, but maybe, like, just felt like he wasn't making the right play, and eventually Vivid makes their perfect play, comes in and clutches the 1v2. But there was other rounds like this where OpTic just had an advantage and just completely squandered it. And that led to a Boston breach victory and a reverse sweep, right? And this is where some of the roast started to come through, right? The fact that Scump's kind of sponsored by Oakley or whatever it is, right? Sponsored by Glasses Company, and a couple of situations where he just didn't see the guy, which I'm sure he's kind of frustrated about when he's looking back at the VODs and stuff. But yeah, reverse sweep for Boston breach. This is not something that happens often to OpTic, especially at the start of the year, because they're winning every single control. Now, when they're losing their controls, this is liable to happen, especially when they lose one map, the snowball starts to come in. This is a thing last year as well with OpTic Chicago, right? Where when the snowball started against them, then like all of a sudden it was out of control. They were losing series. Like earlier this year with Illy in the team, especially stage 1, they didn't have that. They had the resilience to stop the rot effectively. They just don't have that now, right? And I think that's one of the key things they miss with not having Illy in the team. But yeah, reverse sweep for the Boston breach. Massive, of course, for them. Massive for Nero as well. Fair play. He played phenomenally, especially because it now sets them up very nicely indeed for World Championship qualification and puts Florida in a very tough spot indeed. Now, Aches was saying, look, you have to see this one coming, right? He's also kind of twisting the knife in effect, just saying they're like OpTic, they're not what they were, and they're not what they need to be if they want to have any success this year. So definitely treat your respect on all this stuff in the comment section below. And even Boston come up with this. Mutineers right now, right, because of the fact that, well, they dropped Vivid, let him go to Boston, and now the team's fortunes are seemingly taking turns in different directions. So crazy scenes. Honestly, I have no idea why they dropped Vivid. Like, of course, yes, goes negative this series, but the KD isn't everything. But Nero was clearly the MVP here. Like 1.2, 13,000 damage. Dashi again somehow drops a 1.2. Probably had a really tough series in a lot of the respawns. And I do think that the kind of lack of practice and the difficult situations OpTic have been in the last couple of weeks certainly hurt them here, right? The fact that they were screwing with Illy and now they've got Proly back in, like, definitely hasn't helped their respawns at all. But at the same time, like, I thought they also showed other crucial cracks in their armory that make it very difficult to believe they're going to be a serious threat as time progresses this season to win tournaments again. And the final series of the day, another banger between LAG and Toronto Ultra. Was not expecting this one to go the distance as it did. LAG, I thought, again, in a similar boat to Florida, that kind of lateral move. Boston, I thought they would get better. They kind of proved that they did. I thought LAG similarly lateral. Fair play to Neptune and Huke. Both of them played well this series. Spart showed up as well. But in the end, Toronto just too strong. Put Toronto down 2-0 and then they win the control. Like, they can beat anyone in that type of situation. But Huke goes off game 1. Honestly, both Huke and Neptune look pretty good at their time. They both made some questionable plays, but game 1, I mean, look at this. 27 and 18 for Neptune, 26 and 15 for Huke. That is the kind of impact you want to see from the SMG duo. Like, on paper, the names of those SMG duos are good, or those players in this SMG duo are good. Whether they can perform at the level that their kind of name value suggests is a big question. It hasn't necessarily been the case so far. But I mean, yeah, they turned up game 1. Game 2 was honestly the Spart show. This guy was hitting some ridiculous shots, honestly, with the sniper rifle. This one, especially this 1 versus 2, is disgusting. He also did a no-scope again a couple of rounds later as well, which was ridiculous. 1 versus 2, gets the first kill here onto Cammy. The second shot as well was absolutely fantastic, honestly. To take down Bance, win the 1 versus 1 clutch, or win the 1 versus 2 clutch. 5-2 at this point. Toronto tried to bounce back, but Spart taking this no-scope against Bance again. Like, yeah, for some reason his sniper shots just seem to have laser beams attached to them. That was a disgusting shot. But in the end, it's Toronto that clutch up. They win the control as expected, take the game 4, and then clutch them in the game 5 search and destroy. You can never count Toronto Ultra out. Los Angeles Guerrillas looked better, but that kind of search and destroy dominance they had with Spart, not necessarily the case quite here. And in a very tightly fought series, it's Toronto that get the better of them, right? So this would have been a massive 10 points for Los Angeles Guerrillas, but reverse swept by Toronto. Like, I mean, you really felt this one was coming, to be honest. They clutched up in the game 5. It's just what Toronto do. They made some questionable plays. They made up for it. I do think LAG looked a bit more promising in this series than they have done as of late. If they play like they did in this series, they probably should be good enough theoretically to qualify for champs, but it's still going to be far from easy. They are very much on the cusp right now, and you get plenty of other teams certainly on the cusp as well that are going to play over these coming days as well. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button. Tells the YouTube gods this is a good video, and I was like you should see it as well. And I'm great the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.